Welcome to the Foul Play YouTube channel.
Hey, welcome everyone. Welcome to Coffee with Foul Play. And the title of our presentation today, believe it or not, is called Stolen Time. My name is Dr. Silkman, and welcome, beautiful people. Welcome to the podcast. Now, what we're going to do today is something a little bit different. As you know, you guys have been following us. Our fantastic listeners and subscribers have been following us for quite a long period of time. And we have done, I think, 23 or 24 podcasts, all on MAM 1. Now, we realize that there is a lot of new people that join Foul Play all the time, and we're really, really helpful and thankful for that. But a lot of the new players, they don't really know all the history of what's happened in the Stephen Avery and Brendan Dassey cases. So you can either follow our podcasts that we do every week, or what we've decided to do is a quick summary. Now, I've made my first mistake. A quick summary, right, Bibi? A quick summary.
Yeah.
So
We'll see.
So what we've done is we've actually distilled all of our slides to 20. Now, the reason why we've done this is that if you want a condensed version of the main events that took place in MAM 1, we've distilled it down to 20 slides. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly go through all 20 slides, and I'll do that myself. And what we're going to do is then open up the discussion to our panel and also to our listeners. But before we do that, guys, all of us here at Foul Play want to give a big thank you to all of our subscribers. And if you like what we do, guys, please subscribe and hit the like button. We have currently 856 subscribers, and that's awesome, guys. And we thank you so much for that. And thank you so much for sticking with us throughout our journey. And it is a journey, because here at Foul Play, our main goal is to educate the public about what happened in the Stephen Avery and Brendan Dassey trials. And of course, our ultimate aim is to see the boys come home, hug their mamas, and hopefully that the justice system, I'm from Australia, but hopefully the justice system in America can be looked at and hopefully fixed up, so that wrongful convictions do not take place again. And guys, on our Foul Play server, our YouTube channel, we've had over 232,000 views of our material. And that's awesome, guys. And we love the feedback and we love your questions. And of course, on our Foul Play channel, we not only have a Coffee with Foul Play, we have uploaded over 1,000 phone calls. And we're very, very thankful for the fantastic work done by Christy and also by Millbilly, who've analysed a lot of the calls and have also done excellent work in other areas as well. We're very lucky to have both Christy and Millbilly on our panel. We also have Thirsty for Theory Thursday, which is a bit of a tongue twister, but this is where we invite guests and we go into a lot of detail on specific topics. And they have been really well received, guys, and we thank you for your support. All right, guys. Well, joining me on our final podcast for MAM 1 are Bibi, Big Jeff, Kelly, Christy, Millbilly, and Obi-Wan. And monitoring the chat today, guys, will be both Sammy and Zoe. And so write down your questions, and both Sammy and Sammy will read out the questions and we'll go through them. Now, before we actually start, Christy, is there any comments that you want to make regarding a special event? Thank you,
Yes.
Christy.
Thank you. Our website is live and it's ready to go. It's foulplay.info. It was a vision that came through a conversation between myself, Millbilly, and Andrew Whitehead one evening. And it just, I don't know, grew from there. It's awesome. I'm very happy with it. The people that built it, Spooky and Zoe, took my vision and ran with it, and it's an amazing website. All the
Wow.
YouTube channels are linked. The library is linked. All the documents we have. There's still some finishing touches that need to be made, but we feel good about releasing it and letting people go. I'm sure some of the other moderators are posting the link in here tonight. Again, it's foulplay.info. Check it out. It's going to be great. It'll change as it goes, and I'm
Yeah.
really excited about this.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you, Christy. No, that's
problem.
awesome. That's awesome. And you know what? It's really great to see the evolution of Foul Play. And wow, have a website linking everything together is just awesome. Thank you guys for all your help. All right. So, guys, what we'll do, we'll now go through the 20 slides. Now, remember, I'm only going to briefly discuss each slide, and then we'll open it up for general discussion and general questions. All right. So, we start really with slide 1, of course. And here, we all looked at the early life of Stephen Avery. And the reason for choosing the pictures is that it shows an evolution of Stephen as a young child through adolescence, when he got married, and he had, of course, 5 young children. We also show the darker side of what happened to his life, the fact that he got placed in prison, got out of prison, met the love of his life, Jody, and things were looking good. And then, of course, he gets accused of murdering Teresa Halbach, and now, of course, he's back in prison. And I like this slide because it just shows the evolution of what had occurred to Stephen Avery, selecting specific pictures. Okay, guys, if we have a look at slide number 2. Now, I think we all recognize that this is when things really took a turn for the worse. He basically ran his cousin, Sandra Morris, off the road. He had an unloaded gun, and this is where his troubles really began. The unfortunate thing for Stephen was that his cousin Sandra happened to be married to Deputy William Morris, and of course, he didn't take too kindly of what happened. And really, this was the start of Stephen's downfall. Now, Stephen openly admitted what he did. He didn't back away, but things got really nasty for him. Okay, if we have a look at slide number 3. Now, believe it or not, Stephen was accused of the vicious, violent attack that happened to Penny Bernstein, and we have the influence by certain deputies, in this case, Judy Dvorak, and it basically steered the investigation into looking at Stephen Avery. And as a consequence of this, and we all know what Chief Deputy Eugene Couchet did with his infamous drawing, Stephen Avery eventually got arrested and accused of the vicious sexual assault on Penny Bernstein and got sent to prison for, I believe, 32 years. Okay, now if we have a look at slide number 4, well, the good news for Stephen was that eventually there was some forensic DNA testing that was done on a pubic hair, and that led to his exoneration. And as you can see here, Stephen Avery was delighted to be released, but there was going to be a big fallout. A lot of people were going to be in trouble. Of course, the DNA from the pubic hair pointed to Gregory Allen. So that was going to cause a lot of controversy and trouble for the investigating officers in the case. If we have a look at slide number 5, okay, well, an investigation was done by Peg Lockenschlager, and her report basically cleared everyone. There was no problems. No one did anything wrong. And, it was just a simple miscommunication. Well, of course, that didn't sit too well with Stephen and with his lawyers. He set up a civil lawsuit for $36 million. If we have a look at slide number 6. Now, this to me is remarkable. This slide is a summary of the individuals that were being deposed in the civil lawsuit. And as one can see, on October the 31st, Teresa Halbach is last seen. On November the 1st, they passed the so-called Avery bill. And on November the 3rd, Teresa Halbach is reported missing. And as you can see here, this is an important point, guys. As you can see, the information that was released in the press and in the media was that Teresa Halbach was driving a dark green 1999 Toyota RAV4. So what's remarkable is the timing of these events. That Teresa Halbach was reported missing or about a week or so before the deposition of the sheriff and also the DA. Okay, so guys, if we have a look at slide number 7, we can see basically the state, the team representing the state, and the team representing the defense. For the state, we have Garn, Fallon, and Ken Kratz. For the defense, we have Buting and Strang. So there was a pre-trial. The judge said there was enough information to go for a full trial. Now, if we have a look at slide number 8, now remember, I'm not going through any detail here, just to present the material as it unfolded. We have Pam Sturm, who is Teresa's cousin, and both her and her daughter were responsible for finding the RAV4 that was present on the Avery salvage yard, and allegedly that RAV4 belonged to Teresa Halbach. We have Special Agent Tom Sturdivant, who analysed the burn pit, and as a result of the analysis of the burn pit, allegedly human cremains were found. Then we also have the infamous trio, Kaczarski, Lenk, and Colburn, who allegedly found Teresa Halbach's Toyota RAV4 key inside Stephen Avery's bedroom. If we go to slide number 9, to me, this is such a critical and important slide. And it's essentially Tom Fassbender, who was from DCI and a principal investigator in the case, phones up Cherie Culhane. And Cherie Culhane was the head of the DNA unit. And we have the infamous quote, try to put her in reference to Teresa Halbach in his house or garage. And as we can see here, guys, we have two pieces, critical pieces of forensic evidence, the key and the bullet known as item FL. And interestingly here, during this part of the trial, we can see Ken Kratz's face, clearly very upset. All right, if we turn to slide number 10, we're halfway through, guys. This is critical. This is the discovery of Stephen Avery's blood vial, because remember, the state was allegedly that Stephen Avery had left blood in the RAV4 because he had a cut to his finger, whereas Stephen Avery and also his defense team saying, no, the blood was planted from the blood vial. Then we have Dr. Mark Lebeau, who did the analysis on EDTA. Okay, so let's have a look at slide 11. To me, this was a crucial event. This is when Laura Shadry, my apologies if I said that wrong, who's the manager for the Singular Wireless, when she appeared on the stand to discuss the phone messages on Teresa Halbach's phone. And there's no question, this was pinnacle because Ken Kratz became very upset and actually had ordered the jury to go out. And there was a big heated discussion between Ken Kratz and also Buting about these phone messages. And remarkably, the judge really couldn't see the relevance of all of the messages and what the issue was. But the judge did ask Ken Kratz, does the state know who accessed the voicemails? And for one of the few times in the trial, Ken Kratz was speechless. And that was priceless. So to me, all the shenanigans revolve around those phone calls. Who had access to the calls? Why messages were being deleted? Very, very controversial. Okay, so guys, if we have a look at slide 12 is very, very important. We have two important star witnesses here. Scott Tadich, who became Stephen's brother-in-law. He married Stephen's sister, Barb. And the reason why his testimony was important was because he mentioned this huge, big fire that was as high as the garage. The other star witness was Stephen's own nephew, Bobby Dassey, and his testimony was very important for the state because it completely was different to the recollections of Stephen Avery. Bobby Dassey, of course, says that when he went bow hunting, he had actually seen Teresa Halbach's vehicle still on the property. He had seen Teresa Halbach walking towards Stephen Avery's trailer. And when he left to go bow hunting, he didn't see Teresa Halbach. He didn't see Stephen. But he did see the Toyota RAV4 still there. So this was very, very damaging testimony against his own uncle. Whereas Stephen always said, hey, I paid her money, and I saw her leave the Avery salvage yard. So that's a huge, huge difference. So what is amazing here is that two relatives per se, his brother-in-law and his nephew, both gave damning evidence against Stephen Avery. Okay, now we have slide 13. This is the sentencing. What's remarkable here was that the judge, Patrick Willis, and I quote, "You are probably the most dangerous individual ever to set foot into this courtroom." And of course, Stephen Avery was found guilty and he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of early release. If we have a look at slide number 14, so these are the pinnacle events that have happened, that have occurred in MAM 1. And of course, here we have the massive contrast between Stephen's family, who are obviously very devastated. We have the Halbach family, who still haven't shown any signs of any emotions. They're all stone face, which is truly remarkable, even when the sentences were being read. And of course, the prosecuting team for the state is extremely happy. And people are smiling. Ken Kratz gives a press conference, and you can see the smirk on his face. He's extremely happy. And of course, for the Avery family, it's double devastation. They've been through this before, and Stephen is now behind bars yet again. Now, we have the introduction of Brendan Dassey in slide 15. And as we know, to me personally, and to a lot of members of the panel and our audience, this is completely very, very tragic. And we have a devastating interrogation that was done on March the 1st, involving Fassbender, Wiegert, and Brendan Dassey. This is the so-called coerced confession, in which it was videotaped, and people have analyzed the transcripts, and it's clear that a lot of the critical information isn't coming from Brendan, it's actually coming from the investigators themselves. But this had a devastating consequence, and Brendan was arrested, and went to trial, and the preceding judge there was Judge Jerome Fox. If we have a look at slide 16, this is the so-called infamous March 2nd press conference, in which Ken Kratz, you can see, visibly upset, basically gave out what had occurred with no forensic evidence at all. He basically polluted the entire jury pool, recalling what Brendan Dassey had said to the investigators. Of course, Barbie Under wasn't too impressed and basically said to Stephen, you can basically rot in hell for doing this to my son. So it wasn't looking good at all. If we have a look at slide 17, this to me is such a despicable act, but Len Kaczynski was the so-called attorney of Brendan Dassey, and he hired an investigator, Michael O'Kelly, and they came in with a plan. They wanted a confession from Brendan, a nice, neat little summary, so they could utilize Brendan as the star witness against his own uncle, Stephen Avery. And of course, there were a lot of despicable acts that took place here, with Michael O'Kelly basically demanding a confession from Brendan. So both Len Kaczynski and Michael O'Kelly, their plan was, Brendan, you're guilty, write it down, we're going to use this information and we're going to hand it over to the state. All right, so if we have a look at slide 18, to me personally, this was the turning point. And that was the what the bus driver, Lisa Buchner, stated very early on. I think it was on the Saturday or the Sunday, when she talked to one of the officers at one of the roadblocks and said, yeah, I let off the boys and I saw a photographer, etc., taking pictures. This completely changed the dynamics of the interrogation or questioning of Brendan Dassey by Detective O'Neill. And so much so that Brendan had actually changed his story 3 times. This made Detective O'Neill very, very suspicious, and Detective O'Neill believed that Brendan Dassey was hiding something, right? So this was devastating. Of course, when the bus driver appeared on the stand many, many months later, she couldn't actually remember when the day nor the week when she actually saw the female photographer taking pictures. But this had the immediate effect that Brendan had changed his story to Detective O'Neill 3 times. Unbelievable. Okay, if we have a look at slide 19, we're nearly finished, guys. This was truly remarkable. Brendan had the guts to appear on the stand, and he recanted everything he said. He says, look, it's all been made up. I never saw Teresa. I never saw any events taking place. And Fallon, of course, was having a field day here, and he was mocking Brendan in court by calling him sir, and mocking him. And remarkably, Brendan had the gumption to say, look, I got these events from a book called Kiss the Girls. And, it's pretty obvious that no investigator actually checked the veracity of what Brendan was telling them. And it just so happened that all the major events that Brendan had recalled were indeed from Kiss the Girls, not the book, but the film. However, no one from the investigating team thought to check to see what Brendan was saying was indeed true. And of course, this had a devastating effect because really all the major events came straight from Kiss the Girls. And we've done a project on this. All right, guys, the final slide before we open up the panel is slide number 20. And guys, we know the outcome. The outcome is that Brendan, at that time when Man Mum was released, was 26 years old. He was 16 years old when he got arrested, only a child, and he still remains in prison. And he won't be eligible for release until he's 58 years old. And we must remember, there's no forensic evidence against Brendan. It's all based on confession. And finally, guys, we have Stephen Avery, who's in prison for life. No chance of early release. And at the time that MAM 2 had finished, he had spent pretty well close to over half of his life in a tiny cell. All right, guys. Well, this, in effect, is a quick summary of MAM 1. And we've done, I think, 23 or 24 podcasts, over 48 hours of content. So, guys, I'd like to open it to the panel and also to our listening audience for questions. We just wanted to do a quick review using 20 slides. Thank you, guys. Do we have any questions about what we've seen so far? Sammy?
You've done a superb job. Thank you.
Thank you very much, guys. Hey, it's all work done by our team, which is awesome. Bibi, do you have a comment?
Look, Sookman, we can get through 20 slides in a podcast.
I know. I was shocked myself. I must have had a good coffee. But, guys, I mean, the whole idea of doing this is that if you're new to the case, it'll be nice to have a look at this review, quick review of 20 slides. And, of course, you can now go back in our podcast, Coffee with Foul Play, where we look in depth of the information. And like all of us who are on the panel, share the rage, because, we've only presented surface information, but when you look into this case on a deeper level, it's indeed very, very disturbing. Okay, guys, do we have any questions? Any comments?
Everyone on the panel over here in the chat is actually giving you an applause. And I just thought I'd tell you.
Thank you very much, guys. I mean, hey, I'm only a spokesperson for our group, and I'm very, very fortunate to be part of Foul Play. And like I said, to educate the public, to educate even myself, I'm still learning new stuff. Christy, do you have a comment?
I just want to say thank you for all your work on this. You've done an excellent job. I've thoroughly enjoyed doing this with you every weekend for the past, how many weeks has it been? How many did we do?
24 weeks, I think.
Wow.
Yeah.
I can't believe it's been that long. It's been fun. It's been fun. It's been fun.
Awesome.
It's been a blast. I love what we've built here. I love what we stand for. I love what we're doing.
Well, there's going to be more of it, Christy, and everybody else, because I'm going to go away for a little while. I have a bit of a break, but we're going to tackle MAM 2, and that's really going to open up people's eyes. The Foul Play team have done an excellent amount of work, a lot of the TTTs. We now have a lot of information, and of course, there's been a lot of FOIAs as well. And we're learning more and more about the case every day. And our aim is to educate people and also to allow people to do their own research into different areas that they find very interesting. And we all come back together as a group and we discuss it. And so get ready for MAM 2. It'll be a little while, but we want to do a similar approach. But this time, we can now bring in a lot more forensic evidence, right? And that will be awesome. Okay, guys, any other questions or comments? Is everybody stunned? Christy.
Wow. Well, does anybody in the audience, in the chat, have any questions that they want to ask? I mean, I feel like we've all taken the stage and we've talked about this numerous times. Do they have questions? Do they want to say anything?
They're basically commenting on how wonderful of a job the team is doing and thanking us, and saying lucky to have an in-house DNA expert. Just a lot of compliments, basically. Oh, and someone here says Julie Thorne, pineapple on pizza rocks.
Yeah, I was just gonna tell you you have to mute her or something. I can't allow that. I can't allow this pineapple on pizza stuff. No.
Luckily for
No.
you, Julie, I agree with you. I love pineapple on pizza. So no muting going on here.
You guys have problems.
This has turned into a hot debate, Silkman. This pineapple on pizza, it's turned into a hot debate between us.
I know. Look, guys, I almost left foul play. Because no one liked black calamatas and pineapple on a pizza.
Hey,
what's going on, guys?
The only way pineapple belongs on pizza is when it's in your shopping cart sitting on top of it.
Yeah, good.
I'll do a fruit pizza. We can have a fruit pizza. We can have like a dessert fruit pizza. Other than that, pineapple and tomato sauce don't belong together.
Yeah, oh well. But guys,
we do have a question. Singer Girl is asking, do you all think it was proven there was even a fire?
Well, we'll open it up to the...
There was a fire. Yes, there was a fire. Not the fire.
On October 31st?
Not like they claim. Not as big as they claim.
Okay.
Because you can hear when Stephen Avery is talking to Scott Tadich on December 26th, asking him, "Oh, what time do you think you dropped Barb off?" He says it had to have been like 7:45. The fire was almost done. He agrees with them. Yeah, it's done.
Yeah.
Yep, that became questionable even to me. Yeah. Now I have another question. Super Mario is at Super Mario Maker 2 Glitch Hunters. Can I ask, is the sentence given to Stephen, is that normal for that sort of crime in that part of the world?
Well, I mean, he's been charged with murder, and that's life in prison. And not only that, he wasn't found guilty of mutilating a corpse, which is very, very interesting, considering that the bones actually had cut marks in them. So that's really bizarre. But he was also charged with, I believe, sexual assault. So yeah, he's got life in prison.
It sounded like they were trying to tally up as much time for him on everything that they could.
Well,
Correct.
Isn't life in prison normally like 33 years or something normally? But he got without early release or something.
He got life without the possibility of parole whatsoever.
Yeah.
Parole. Correct.
Unlike Brendan, he got life with the possibility of parole, 2048?
2048, correct.
Being the earliest he could start.
I have another question.
Yes, Sam.
And this one probably is just specifically for Silkman, but it says, I know, this is from Suzanne Sims, I know that Culhane declared 1 in a billion on the 7 loci, but what is the actual stat?
Well, I don't know the actual stat off the top of my head, but we can easily find that out. So basically, the way it's worked out, it's on probabilities. So that means that certain loci occur with a certain frequency in a population. And the reason why those markers are chosen is because there are many different variants of those loci. So, for example, if we're all tested for a particular locus, like, say, TPOX, it's likely that we all have a different allele. So what scientists do is they work out a frequency of that allele in a population. So that means that the allele can be 1 in 1,000, 1 in 10,000, or 1 in a million. The higher that number, the better, because what people are trying to do, what scientists do, is to find a profile that's unique, right? I reckon that Culhane probably got her mathematics all stuffed up. So basically what you do is you multiply the frequency of each allele. So you've got 1 in 10, one allele could be 1 in 10, another allele could be 1 in 10. So 10 times 10 is 1 in 100. So that's the way they do it. Okay. So if you've got 7 alleles, that number's going to be huge, whether it's in hundreds of millions or a billion. So that's basically how they calculate that frequency. Correct.
All right,
if I could take a crack at that too. I mean, if you think about, let's say that I have 5 dice. Okay, there's six numbers on a dice. I'm going to roll 10 of them.
Yes.
So with independent rolls, I'd expect any combination of the dice, assuming that the dice are in a particular order, to be 6 to the 10th power, and that's if each roll is independent. But if you're talking about a sort of a dice population that's representative of families, then it might be, people of the same family have the same color eyes. There's a lot of intermarriage, and so they start to group, and you sort of lose the statistical independence of the dice rolls, because in a small population, it is not equally likely that any dice combination is going to come up. It's going to be how like you said, how those alleles are. And the lack of the correlation that's introduced from the fact that you're dealing from a population of a family.
That's correct.
I don't think I clarified it any, but
yeah. So basically,
it made sense.
If you're going to do it correctly, Sammy, you basically have to work out what is the frequency of those alleles in Wisconsin, or where her local population is. But you could imagine trying to do a study like that. It'll be very, very expensive. So essentially what they've got to do is compare the alleles that came up in item BZ, which was the muscle tissue. They have to compare those alleles with the pap smear. So the pap smear is the golden sample. It's the reference sample. And 7 of those...
2.
Yeah, go for it, Sammy.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry.
No,
I have 2 more.
No, not at all.
2 more comments.
Not at all.
One is, first of all, you may want to put this one after the next one, but I'm just going to give them to you the order that they came. And Carl is asking, does anyone believe that Teresa is alive and living in Canada? Then the second one is from Singer Girl. She said, but Stephen didn't mention a fire on the 31st until he talked to Barb on November 18th. She convinced him. Until then, he said it was the week before.
Millbilly, do you have any comments about the fire?
Which fire? Because the before he burned the van seat with some garbage, and then the 31st he burned the brush that Redant brought.
The brush. Correct.
He also burned the coffee table that Tom Yonda had given Stephen that he left outside and got rained on, so he burned it. Barb was pissed because she was going to hang it in the garage, use it as a shelf. He also burned the 4 tires.
Right, correct. And remember, we got to try and classify fire. I mean, for these guys living on the Avery salvage yard, a fire can either be a very small one or a very big one. And there was a lot of mention, the fact that there wasn't a huge bonfire at all.
Well, the bonfire was supposed to take place on Friday.
Correct.
The 4th.
Correct. That's correct. So there was no big bonfire per se. But the main
when they asked Stephen, did you have a bonfire? No, I didn't have fire. I was just burning some things around.
Correct.
It's different.
Correct.
Like here in Wisconsin, a bonfire, you get together with a group of people, usually drinking beer, and you burn a bunch of stuff.
Correct.
It's different in the sense that it's the same, but it's it's like a gathering rather than just burning the crap on the
Correct. And what's disingenuous is the fact that the investigators were always trying to trick Stephen about a fire. Oh, but yesterday you said, and now you're changing your story, and the guilters go, he's lying. But we've just discussed here, guys, a fire and a bonfire and burning just general rubbish are completely different things, right?
Okay.
You normally have a bonfire on Halloween where, you get together with a lot of your mates. Like Millbilly said, you bring your beers, you bring your marshmallows, you have a big discussion. Whereas burning rubbish and brush, that's no.
You're just kind of getting the job done, all done.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yep.
And the
Neverly
yes.
is asking, was the pap smear 100% Teresa's full profile, or was it a partial profile?
It's a full profile, a full genetic profile. So the cells in the pap smear themselves were all good. Cherie Cohen was able to obtain a full genomic profile, and it came up female. All the alleles came up. So that's your golden standard, because, guys, if there was no pap smear, there's no case, because you couldn't actually compare any DNA results to anything else. So that pap smear was critical. No pap smear, you got no case. It's
Glenn
as
wants to know, do you think the blood came from the vial or the sink?
Unknown.
It could have came from the vial. It could have came from the sink. Could have came from his truck. Could have came from the Grand Am. Could have came from the trailer. There was blood everywhere.
Yes, I agree. And the big mistake, in my opinion, was that the defense focused on the blood vial. And as a consequence of that then led to some shady EDTA testing, right? I mean, the blood itself was over 9 years old. EDTA degrades. It doesn't last forever. So therefore, you have all those issues regarding EDTA. The defense should have gone with the line of our blood source was used to plant in the RAV4. That's it. They don't have to specify the origin of that blood source. Big Jeff, do you have a comment?
I do, and this was going back to the other question that I think we skated over a little bit regarding does anybody think she's alive? The answer to that question is yes. There are people who think she's alive.
I was going to say that and remind you last, because that's a whole another topic.
Yeah, it is. But I mean, we kind of got there. We started to go down a particular path, and I wanted to just make a comment about that. I think there are people, yes, but the having to do with the pap smear and whatnot, there was this thing called the gentleman's agreement.
Correct.
Right. And that's where I wanted to comment on. And if Kathleen Zellner does succeed in getting a new trial, it will be because the old trial, the results of the old trial are thrown out because there was something fundamentally flawed about the trial. There was some type of Brady violation, perhaps. It was incorrect not to allow him to have any suspects. That means she gets a new trial.
Ineffective.
And she is therefore ineffective assistance to counsel. Whatever the reason is, it starts brand new. And I don't believe that the new counsel is necessarily going to be subjected to the gentleman's agreement.
No.
Right.
And therefore they can challenge the results of the pap smear. They can, for example, demand that if you really think that this is not Teresa's, well, we know that DNA testing can reveal close relatives, right? So if that pap smear does not show to be a close relative of Mike Halbach or Karen Halbach, where that DNA sample that's used to do that comparison is taken under the control of the defense, that's fine. That will put all that stuff to rest. There's plenty of ways to put it to rest.
So. I hope so.
Yeah,
Super Mario Maker 2 Glitch Hunters is asking, did Kratz try to get the death penalty reinstalled for Stephen?
That actually was mentioned. Yes, that actually was mentioned. And Nancy Grace even brought that up. We've actually got it as a slide. Yes, they wanted to reinstate the death penalty because of the Stephen Avery case, but it wasn't successful. Milby, do you have a comment?
Go ahead.
Yes.
No.
Well, let's go back to the final question was about, did anyone think she's still alive and living in Canada? If anyone wants to have, bring that up, then answer that.
I don't think I know she disappeared. That's a fact. Whether she's
That's
dead
pretty
or
much
not.
all we know for sure is her disappearing. There's no proof of her death. There's no absolute scientific proof of who that individual is, in my mind.
BB, do you have a comment?
I definitely believe that she's alive, and I do think it is the one. That's just me.
Why do you think
that? I just do. I do.
Please explain.
Okay.
Well, you can listen to next week's Thirsty for Theory Thursday, and Juan Screw and Chad Keller get deeply into why they think that it's her and she's living there. There are a lot of very strange coincidences about the places she goes.
It is a very delicate
the
matter.
home she stays in. So I think that, there's not concrete proof. There's only circumstantial evidence. And to me, the way it should be addressed is via the gentleman's agreement at Stevens' new trial.
Yes. Christy, do you have a comment?
It does need to be addressed. I have been a diehard no, she's dead since day one of this case, and very, very recently, in the last several weeks to month or so, I'm opening myself up to the possibility that at this point anything's possible and nothing would surprise me. So I guess I'm on the fence now on how I feel about whether Teresa's alive or dead.
Okay.
I'm on the fence. I know we can't prove she's dead. You can't prove she's dead.
Right. Okay.
That's a problem.
It's a problem.
Is that a change for you, Christy?
It is. It is a big change. It is a very, very big change, because I have been a diehard no, she's dead, you're crazy, I'm not even going to entertain that theory until very recently. Just people pointing, like Jeff said, I don't want to expose it all, but especially after spending all those hours with Wanda Screw and Chad Keller, I'm willing to at least consider it and say that now we're at the point where it needs to be answered one way or the other. I think if there's nothing to hide, then I don't see the problem. I think this needs to be put to bed one way or the other, whether it's yes or it's no.
Yes. Obi-Wan, thank you, Christy. Obi-Wan, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I kind of want to go straight back to the beginning. And I know that we have a bunch of it just seems like a bunch of new names on the channel and the YouTube channel. And I just wanted to, I just wanted people to kind of get a backstory on you and how you got involved in this case and what's your opinion about the Halbach family possibly knowing what took place.
Obi-Wan, you're asking me?
Yes. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Kind of putting you on the spot there a little bit, but
no.
A lot of might not know your background. You know what I mean? I mean, we got a lot of new people coming in all the time, and
sure.
It's kind of good to go back over that.
Sure. I'll just be very, very quick. My profession, I'm retired now. My profession is a molecular biologist. I've been in the DNA field for close to 30 years. I'm a biochemist and molecular biologist. I have 3 university degrees, a Bachelor of Science, first class honors in biochemistry, a PhD in human molecular biology. So all these diagnostic tests that are being done, I was actually working on stuff like that, doing family studies. So I know all about linkage analysis, extraction of DNA, family studies, RFLP analysis. So I've done all of that. So my background is molecular biology, and I was then a postdoctoral research fellow in gene technology. So I've got a lot of expertise in handling and manipulating DNA. And then I was a university educator for 25 years in biochemistry. So I've taught biochemistry, the recombinant DNA technology, all the techniques that Cherie Colhane has done, I've done it myself. So I can speak with great experience and knowledge of how that material is done. So my background is a molecular biologist, DNA. This case excited me because it's all forensics. It's all DNA. And it is difficult to understand So my aim was to try and break it down and make it as simple as possible. Now, if I came to this case without any prior knowledge and I looked at the forensic evidence as it is, my conclusion is that Teresa Halbach is dead, stone cold dead. And that's based on the fact that, now, let's assume that the pap smear is hers. Right? That's number one. That's the number one thing. And I agree with BB, I agree with Christy, Big Jeff, everyone. You got to prove that the pap smear came from Teresa Halbach. If that pap smear came from Teresa Halbach, I'm 99.99% convinced Teresa Halbach is stone cold dead. The reason why I say that is the blood in the RAV4 that was at the back matched 100% with the pap smear. The saliva that was present in the cherry Pepsi can matched 100% with the blood and the pap smear. So these are two independent samples, blood and saliva, found in the victim's so-called car. Yes, it's controversial. We don't know whether it's one RAV or two RAV or the color. Understand that. But I'm talking about from a molecular biologist point of view, if I knew nothing about the case. But the most important thing is item BZ. Item BZ was charred muscle tissue that was present on bone. On bone. So these are cremains. Now, 7 loci came up. The reason why 7 loci came up is because the DNA was badly fragmented. But the loci that did come up was a 100% match to the pap smear, the blood, and the saliva. So yes, you've got to have now 20 alleles, no question. But the alleles that came up were 100% match to the pap smear, the blood, saliva. This is burnt muscle tissue on bone. Furthermore, the DNA testing proved that the victim was a female because 2 X chromosomes came up. Furthermore, forensic examination of the skeletal remains proved it was from a female and the same age group as Teresa. So now I'm not ruling anything out. You know, anything can happen in this case. That's true. But from a DNA point of view, I'm 99.99% convinced she's dead. Those cremains are Teresa Halbach's. Now, I understand by the letter of the law, you can't say those cremains are Teresa Halbach's, but it hints very, very strongly to being from a female under 30 years of age, and all the alleles that came up were a perfect match. If one allele was different, it ain't Teresa Halbach. But here's the ridiculous thing, right? You want the truth? Those bones should have been retested. It's pure, plain, and simple. Retest them. Test every one of them. Right?
All gone. All gone.
Right? That's it. End of controversy. Test all the bones, right, with the anti-rapid DNA system, and therefore you know whether you've got one victim or 2 or more. And if all the DNA is the same from all the dumping sites of where the bones are, then you know that the victim was dismembered, cut to pieces, and the cremains were spread over at least 3 different geolocations, just like Christine Rudy was. So there was an opportunity to put that to rest. The state, as Sammy said, gave away the bones to the Halbach family in 2011, which means that we now likely can't answer the question of whose cremains they belong to. Therefore, there is a suspicion that Teresa Halbach is indeed alive. Right?
So we have a question from Neverly, darling. She says, Dr. Silkman, from the DNA point of view, the pap, the blood, and the
saliva
and the burned one are all one from one person, being Teresa or someone else. Is that correct?
One person. And the forensic anthropologist, Eisenberg, said, we found no duplicate bones. All the bones, all the cremains are from one individual. Now, that means that when they looked at all the skeletal pieces, they didn't find 2 left wrists, 2 left feet. They only found 1 set. That means that you've got one victim, one, who has been badly burnt. In fact, it looks like the victim was cremated, and there's no freaking way that you can cremate someone in the burn pit that Stephen Avery had. That's why the state had to rely upon the testimony of Scott Daddich to say, oh yeah, huge 10-foot fire flames. Except, guys, we know there's a massive propane tank right next to the fire pit and the dog kennel, right? And Barb used to complain that whenever Steve used to burn a lot of stuff, her house had all the soot on it, right? There was no soot. There was no big fire. And how do we know this is suspicious? There are no in situ photographs anywhere of those cremains.
So Mark Seeley is saying all you can say is there is potential correlation between the pap smear and the DNA in the RAV. You can't
there's
conclude
100%.
TH is dead from that.
Well, there's 100% correlation because the blood in the RAV, the saliva in the RAV match 100% with the pap smear. Now, if the pap smear is Teresa Halbach, she's stone cold dead. If the pap smear isn't from Teresa Halbach, she's alive, right? Now, if you think about it, guys, if you're going to do this ruse, if you're going to do this, you need to get a pap smear from a female, her blood, her saliva, and her bones. Yes, someone's going to say, come and Botwell, but that's what I'm trying to say. You need to show, okay, this pap smear is Teresa Halbach. The way to do it, show the paperwork. That's it. And hopefully, the forensic experts can do a re-extraction of the cells that are left and prove that it is indeed Teresa Halbach. Oh, the other thing, of course, you need a mother as well, because they did mitochondrial DNA testing. So if you're going to do a body swap, you need everything. Now, you think about it. Are the MTSO or the planter that smart? That's
so
the
is
question
it fair?
ask.
Is it fair for someone like me to say that basically it is speculation that they have speculated that to be Teresa Halbach?
Yes, you can't be definitive. Correct. And the reason why you can't be definitive is you don't know the origins of the pap smear. And you don't have, back then, a 15 out of 15 loci match. That is correct. You cannot be definitive. Now, if that's not Teresa Halbach, Brendan and Stephen walk. You got another victim. It's not Teresa Halbach. However, if that is Teresa Halbach, then we know that she's stone cold dead. Right? It's as simple as that. And that's why Kathleen Zellner said, give me the bones, I'll test them. And the state gave them all away. But, guys, we're talking about a genomic DNA profile and mitochondrial DNA analysis. The mitochondrial DNA analysis meant that you cannot eliminate Teresa Halbach as the victim. You cannot. Her mitochondrial DNA matched Karen's, if that sample was indeed Karen Halbach. So if I was going to do it again, I'll throw away all the results and start again. Fresh samples of everything. Therefore, there's no controversy. The state loves the controversy. They haven't tied up loose ends. They've done it deliberately. Obi-Wan.
Yeah, do you think, well, I had two, but one was the opinion you have on the Halbach family as if they know information as to what's going on. And the other one is I had a really, because you stated, well, why didn't they test all the bones? And to me, I think that's really telling, because anyone would have tested every single fragmented bone, broken bone. It doesn't matter what. They should have tested every single bone in there, just to say,
no question.
Cherry pick whatever you want, and then say, oh, we couldn't get no information off of those. But
yes,
I'm not buying it. I'm not sold on that.
Yeah, no. In my opinion, I'm speculating. Law enforcement found remains of Teresa Halbach at Cuss Road. They approached the family and told them what happened, so the family knew she was dead. Right? The whoever it was, I don't know. Then, in their mind, brought everything back to the salvage yard to point the finger at Stephen Avery. And they had 36 million reasons to do it, right? And so in their mind, they either thought that it was done by Stephen, or they didn't care. They were going to pin it on Stephen. But law enforcement, if this is a sting done by a planter, the planter had to know that Teresa Halbach was dead. You can't do a sting whereby you plant a RAV4 with 2 sets of bloods in it. In fact, there's 3 sets of bloods now that we know, A23. You're not going to do an elaborate planting sting if Teresa Halbach is alive and well in Canada or anywhere else, because people are going to go to prison for 400 years if anyone ever found out that this was a sting. So, to me, if you're a planter, you have to know one thing: she's dead. Therefore, you know that you can plant whatever you want. It's going to make Stephen Avery look really, really bad, right? You can't have Teresa Halbach being discovered alive. Man, they'll burn down Wisconsin. And imagine if Teresa Halbach is alive, she's going to be spending all her remaining days in prison for going with this. So it's a big risk. It's a huge risk. So, Obi-Wan, I do believe that the Halbach family knew she met foul play. She's dead. They knew. But whoever the MTSO convinced them that it was done by Stephen. Now, whether they knew about the RAV4 being planted, I mean, Michael Halbach is suspicious as hell. Same with Ryan Hilligus. Something happened with those guys and the RAV4. No question. So they could justify it if the police convinced them it was done by Stephen. That's it.
Okay, we have a couple of comments here. One is from Neverly, and she said, Dr. Silkman, then why are they hiding and destroying biological evidence? And then you go for it, because when you're done, I got something to tell you.
Okay. Well, the main problem is this, right? It's going to open them up to Cuss Road, right? You think about it. The police have completely deep-sixed Cuss Road. They spent 20 seconds on Cuss Road. Ken Kratz only spoke to Colburn and said, what can you tell me about Cuss Road? Oh, nothing there. Tree stump. Nothing. So imagine if they open up the events at Cuss Road, then what's going to happen is it's going to expose the MTSO as being complicit to a planting scenario. Because if cremains are found at Cuss Road, what the hell are cremains doing in Stevens burn pit and the Yonder burn barrel number 2 and at the Manitowoc County gravel pit? So therefore, you can see what the MTSO have done. They don't want to know anything about Cuss Road. Same with Ken Kratz. Ken Kratz asked Colburn, hey, anything nefarious at Cuss Road? No. Okay.
Okay, so we have someone here, Thread Killer. And he or she says, foul play, Teresa in Canada. I'm in Canada. Where? I'll go check it out. But let me say something really quick and then I'll let you respond. First of all, this is a very delicate matter, and God forbid this lady really is not her and she's being harassed. We don't want that. But we're just really trying as researchers. You end up down rabbit holes that bring you to other places that connect things together that it should not connect if it's not true. So it has caused a lot of controversy and question. So I'm going to hand that off to you.
Oh, there's no doubt. But guys, you got to be careful if you start pointing fingers at people in another country, another state or whatever. You got to have concrete proof that if you suspect that she's alive, you got to approach it in a very delicate and sensitive manner, because you can't go around, in my opinion, pointing fingers and saying, I think you're Teresa Halbach. Now, if I was this lady who, people are pointing the finger and saying, oh, I think you're Teresa Halbach, personally, what I would do is do a buccal swab with an attorney, get the results of the buccal swab, and publish them, right? That's the only way you can either prove or disprove that this person is Teresa Halbach. But in order to do it, you need to prove the authenticity of the pap smear, right? And to get rid of more controversy, you publish the DNA profile of Carmen Botwell, right? So therefore, you can prove you have the DNA profile of Carmen Botwell, you have the DNA profile from the pap smear confirmed as belonging to Teresa Halbach, and you have the DNA profile of this lady in Canada. Only by comparing the three can you rule this person in or out. So what's the point of speculating? Jeepers, do a GoFundMe campaign, give this lady a whole heap of money. Say, look, I know it's an invasion of your privacy, but by doing this test, you can eliminate a whole branch of inquiry, right? And let this lady live in peace. If
I had a bunch of people from some other country going, oh, look at this lady, she looks exactly like her, and she's supposed to be dead, and I think that's her, and it was getting to the point where it was impeding my life. I would have no problem. You know what? The world already has your DNA the day you're born anyhow. But what I'm saying is this: if that was me and it was to the point where I had to call the Royal Police, the FBI, and everyone else, I for sure would be willing to do the buccal swab just to get to the point where I can have my own freedom back in my life and not be dealing with these people and tell them to piss off. Excuse me, I'm sorry, I just swore.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Don't forget the police in Wisconsin.
I'm just saying, if that was the case.
Because that's who she called, the police in Wisconsin.
Yeah. So, in my opinion, if that was me, I would do it. Now, keep in mind, I know you're not going to believe this, everyone on this panel, in fact, everyone in our audience, has got at least 2 or 3 doppelgangers in the world. It's been proven. There was this program in which they actually found people's twins, as in not genetic twin, but they actually looked like themselves. And if you look at them and you look at yourself, you look just like that individual. So don't forget, in the world, there are doppelgangers of yourself, right? And they showed it. No matter what race, no matter what ethnicity, there's 2 or 3 people on the earth now that look just like you, almost exactly like you. So you got to be very careful when you point a finger at somebody and say, I think you're Teresa Halbach. You got to be careful because, yes, through normal genetic variation, you will find 2 or 3 people on this earth that look identical. Right? And that happens.
I can attest to that. I went to a doctor for a prenatal visit, and they called this lady's name, and they kept calling her name and looking at me. And I'm like, and the nurse came to me and said, "We're calling you." And I said, "That's not my name." And she said, "Come with me." And when I walked back there, she brought me to the doctor, and her and the doctor insisted that I was this person. And I said, "No." And the nurse said, "You were just here 5 minutes ago and we fit you in." And I said, "No, I have an appointment and this is my name, not that." And I swear to God, even the doctor and the nurse thought I was this chick. And all I could think of was, obviously she left because she's not there, because I was looking in that waiting room for who is the chick that looks exactly like me, but they couldn't even tell.
Oh boy. Tell the audience this is not a setup. That's unbelievable.
I'm serious. And then what's to beat all, over 20 years later, guess who I ended up being neighbors with? That same woman. It was unbelievable. I kid you not. I kid you not. Her first name was Wendy, and she's a very sweet person. She's nothing like me, but that's all I'm going to say. It happened. And I never in my, I could not believe the doctor and the nurse couldn't even tell the difference.
Yes. Wow. Well, guys, and the audience too, and the panel, it's not the fault of anyone asking that question. It's the fault of the state. The fault, 100%, guys, the fault of the state. If the state had done their due diligence and presented the documents and presented the information, there'll be no one's asking questions. But because of a lack of due diligence and a gentleman's agreement, it's ridiculous that it's 2020 and we're pointing a finger at a lady in Canada, right? Ridiculous. Now, let me just say that if the FBI had any inkling that Teresa Halbach was alive and well, I think they would have done something by now. As in, get a buccal swab, get a blood sample done. You can't have this controversy. This is ridiculous. You got two guys, Stephen and Brendan, rotting in prison. And think about it, guys. People are suggesting that Teresa Halbach is alive and well and walking in Canada. Guys, you can't have this. She's either got to give a DNA sample to put it to rest, or the state produces the documentation that proves that pap smear is indeed from Teresa Halbach. And really, that's all I can say in the matter. All right, guys. Do we have any other questions? Panel, any comments? Hey, panel, who's going to Canada? Who's going on a trip?
We're speeding our way north.
I mean, and the other major problem, of course, guys, even if you were to obtain a DNA sample of this person, how are you going to get it tested? Right? You can't go to a forensics lab and just say, I have a DNA sample to test.
Yep.
There has to be some type of paper. There has to be paper trail, right? Because you're now entering the world of legality, right? And someone can sue you by, defamation. Oh, well, I'm clearly not Teresa Halbach. Why are you obtaining a DNA sample under false pretenses? You have to be very, very careful. That's all I can say. Millbilly, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I just don't buy it. She's got a whole family.
Yes.
There are similarities to the way they look, but I just don't see it.
I'm not advocating for one side or the other at this point. I'm absolutely positively a fence sitter at the moment. I will just say that there is some very compelling things to look at, Millbilly. Wait until Thursday. Wait until Thursday. Just listen. And I'm not saying one way or the other. Just listen to what's being said. And there's a couple more connections than just some pictures. There's a lot more connections. There's a lot more connections that I'm actually now saying, wait, what? And you know me, I don't usually go into those corners.
Right. Hey, look, that's fair enough. But all I can say, guys, all of us, we need to proceed with caution. Otherwise, you're invading someone's privacy. If you're right, you'll be a superhero. If you're wrong, oh boy, you might be sitting in a prison cell. So you got to be very careful. It's a big dice to roll. If you're correct, then you're going to be a superstar, no question. But again, guys, the consequences of if you're wrong, the legal implications, God, I even hate to mention it. Don't forget, they've actually caught a serial killer doing exactly that. A serial killer left their DNA on a drink can, but the police had a lot of information about this guy. It was in Australia, right? So they had their suspicions, and they were following him for years, right? It's like Scott Tadich picking up all his cigarette butts, right? He doesn't want his DNA sample taken, right, Big Jeff? Right?
That's right.
So you gotta have a big reason why you want a DNA sample from this person. Bibi, do you have a comment?
I don't think even our government could compel her and make a citizen of another country and give a DNA sample. And it really doesn't matter if it's actually her or not. The fact is that Teresa has never been conclusively proven dead.
Correct. You're correct. By the letter of the law, Bibi, you have no argument with me. And you know what? I love the entertainment of different theories and different ideas. I love it. When I joined Foul Play, before when I was a rubber ducky, we talked about all theories. And the good thing is, it doesn't matter if you have a different opinion, a different theory. Put it out there. Let's debate it. Let's look at the pros and cons. And remember, guys, it's not the investigator or the researcher, the armchair researchers like we all are. It's not their fault. The fault lies squarely with the state. No question. Millbilly, do you have a comment?
Well, going back to the investigators, Wiegert and Fassbender, they actually screw up when they're interviewing Brendan because they bring up the fire after they get him to start saying things happen. Then they have to backtrack. What? So was the fire already going? Or
yes, correct.
The whole time.
Correct. But you see, guys, we've been through it. The state have got no other option at all but to pursue a massive fire in the burn pit, right? And even Wiegert says to Brendan, look, guys, look, the burn pit was small. It was the size of a table. And that's why he kept on questioning Brendan about, seeing body parts. You had to have seen body parts. You have to see, because they knew that the burn pit itself was small. So what do the state do? They bring in heavy equipment and dig it out. So you get this impression of a huge burn pit, but it wasn't. It was tiny, right? They put a blue tarp over it, but guess what, guys? They also put a blue tarp over Cuss Road at where they found this apparent tree stump. They put lighting, they put a blue tarp, and there's a whole heap of assets down there. Ambulance, detectives, you name it, they're all down there. So I don't think you're going to do all that just for a tree stump, right? So the question for me, Millbilly and panel, is why did the MTSO and the investigators suppress Cuss Road? Why? And the deer camp.
Well, discovery of Cuss Road is on the 7th. Why is Wisconsin State Patrol brought in on the 8th?
That's it. That's it.
All
And not only
Manitowoc was manning the investigation at that time. They were all the evidence that Manitowoc's collected that hasn't been turned over to Calumet is being suppressed,
yes,
being withheld.
yes, and think about it, guys. If it's a tree stump, what's a police helicopter doing there all day? Taking photographs, heaps of photographs.
And
Right?
another thing, Wisconsin State Patrol was there starting on the 5th when they're called in to process the car and everything.
Yes,
So why weren't they notified about this area until the 8th, the morning of the 8th,
yes,
24 hours after it's discovered?
yes. And we can see the sequence of events. You have Cuss Road, then all of a sudden you have the bones being found on the salvage yard and in Yonder burn barrel number 2.
And
then later,
we hear all these Manitowoc officers on Cuss Road, but you read the Manitowoc Summary Report, they don't even mention Cuss Road.
no. And Ken, like I said, Ken Kratz spoke to Colburn, and Colburn said, nothing to see here, guys. That's it. And the defense, I don't even think they mentioned Cuss Road because they're relying on the CASO reports, right? There's nothing on Cuss Road.
That's the thing. What were they given? Weren't they given? Well, I already know that they weren't given any of this Calumet dispatch.
Yeah.
Because
Correct.
I've been listening to the transmission calls. That's the dispatcher, the officer's communications. And I just posted the video yesterday of more evidence of them finding things off of Avery's property in the quarry.
Correct. So you can see here that if you're going to do this,
another thing, if they're finding bones in Avery's burn pit on the 8th, like they claim, why do they not detain Stephen Avery on the 8th when he tries coming on the property to get some keys at 7 p.m.?
Yes. Yeah.
They had nothing on it. They had nothing.
No. Obi-Wan.
Yeah, I do want to go back from when you said that there was a person in Australia that was he exonerated or something for?
No, he was a serial killer. But he was a serial killer, but the police suspected that he was, but he didn't have a DNA sample. So they were following him for a very long period of time, and he discarded, I think, a drink can, and they matched his DNA to the crime scene, right? So it's just like Gregory Allen with the pubic hair, right? So they were able to match his DNA at these crime scenes because he murdered, I think, several women. And this was years ago. I wish Kaf was here because I think it happened in Western Australia. So this person was hyper paranoid about leaving DNA. Well, he discarded, I think it was a drink can. They got DNA from it and they arrested him. They matched the DNA to the crime scene, right? And so, in effect, this person who people are suspecting is Teresa Halbach. If I was her, I would get a solicitor, a lawyer, do a buccal swab, and get the DNA sample done on the proviso that they prove the pap smear did indeed belong to Teresa Halbach.
Well, if you were to obtain a DNA profile from Teresa in Canada, couldn't you send it to one of them genealogy sites to get a family trace?
Oh, no question.
And
no
if
question.
It would come back to the Halbachs then, or it wouldn't.
Well, it depends. It depends on where her family comes from, right? So you can work out a percentage, or your percentage from this population. But if her DNA comes back as being very strongly Germanic, then you're going to start to think, there's something here. But what you clearly have to do is compare it to the pap smear.
You were talking about the legality of it, and I just wanted to touch base on a case that's kind of similar. Yes. And it's the case of Clarence Elkins, and he was wrongfully convicted.
Well,
and what happened was he was convicted based on eye testimony of his niece who was 6 years old at the time.
Yes.
And there was a rape and a murder, but the uncle was arrested and he was in prison for 6.5 years. And what happened is when his niece came of age, she started fighting for him and trying to get him out of prison. Well,
yes,
she knew it wasn't him. She knew that the police were like trying to coax her into saying that it was him. Well, they found out that one of the guys that were in prison, which was a neighbor, they suspected of him of doing this.
yes,
The guy ended up going to prison for sex offenses, and he's a
yes,
registered sex offender. Well,
yes,
while he was incarcerated, he took a cigarette butt from that guy and then sent it to the niece, and the niece took and had it tested, and here
mhm,
it was an exact match of the sperm left at the scene on that woman,
yes, yeah,
and it was
yeah,
finally exonerated from that.
yes, yes. But like I said, you have to go through all the appropriate channels if you're going to do it. And so you have to be very careful. But like I said, if I was that lady in Canada, that's what I would do.
There's
Do
a
the
case
test.
in Indiana where these people's daughter goes missing, and they suspect the neighbor. They
Yes.
call in the cadaver dogs, and the dogs hit on his burn barrel. They end up trying to take him to court, try to convict him of it. They end up getting a mistrial. Turns out the family, the man's very own brother, is the one responsible for killing his daughter.
Oh, God.
They almost convicted the wrong person.
Yes.
And the dogs did hit on his burn barrel, but they
Yes.
couldn't find any remains.
Yeah.
Come to find out, they did eventually find her body.
Yeah.
But it's just... So
I
dogs...
agree. Yep. Look, the trouble is, right, it's appropriate for researchers to ask these questions because the state left a lot of loose ends. And that's why Kathleen Zellner is here now to tie up those loose ends, to ask the appropriate questions, and to solve it once and for all.
If
Right?
she
Or
gets her day in court, it's over.
Yes.
They're done.
Yes. Correct.
That's
And
it.
you know, you can layer this like a cake, a multi-layered cake. It does, for the state, the whole thing falls to pieces. Everything falls to pieces. But Kathleen Zellner has to get in front of a judge to present it, right? And you could see that the state are stonewalling it, right? They don't want it to be in front of a judge because it's going to look very, very badly. And you know, you put Ken Kratz on the stand, you put Fallon on the stand, Garn, it's going to get nasty. It really is. And so it should, right? So it should.
Absolutely.
Sammy. Yeah. So, I mean, to me, Man 1 is very, very fascinating because it presents the case as it unfolded with both Stephen and Brendan. But the real thumbtacks is all done in MAM 2. MAM 2 is looking at all the forensics. And you know, a lot of the panelists have done a lot of good work, a lot of good presentations. Big Jeff has done the phone, all sorts of stuff. I've done a few presentations as well. I want to bring all that in with MAM 2 because now we've got documents, we've got phone calls, we've got everything, and you can see how the state played everyone as fools, right? But they've got nowhere to hide now because there are thousands of people like us who are exposing the shenanigans, asking the tough questions, and you know, it's exciting. It's exciting to believe that armchair researchers can make a big difference, right? Because remember, guys, we're here to see the boys come home, right? If they're guilty, burn in hell. But if you're not guilty, you shouldn't be in prison, right? Simple as that. Guys, Millbilly.
Need justice for Teresa too. If she is dead.
No question. No question.
Absolutely. Yes.
No question. Because, I mean, 99% of our discussions are not about the victim. It's about Stephen and Brendan, right? But
Well,
we
that's the
also
thing.
must,
The picture
yes,
that they place of Teresa, we really don't know much about her.
no,
It's like she's disappeared from social media. I mean, there are photos out there, very few. We can only
correct,
speculate, but
correct.
the way the picture they paint of her is she's some church going.
Yes, yes. And
Saint Teresa of Jesus.
yeah, and Christy will back me up on this. That's exactly what Ken Kratz does in his book. He presents her as a saint, could do no wrong, is a beautiful person, never got involved in anything nefarious. And in actual fact, Ken Kratz even said he wanted to punch Buting in the nose, right, when he suggested, well, maybe her lifestyle was a little bit suspect, right? Christy, what do you think?
He definitely whitewashed the victim. He absolutely did. He did not. He made sure he portrayed Stephen as the biggest monster he possibly could, but Teresa was an absolute saint. And I'm not disrespecting the victim. I'm not. But she wasn't a saint. And her, like we said before, her risky lifestyle definitely opened her up to have more people suspected of her disappearance, death, whichever we decide that she is.
Yes.
There should have been more people looked at than Stephen Avery. Bradley Check should have been looked at. Scott Blodorn should have been looked at. Ryan Hilligus should have been looked at. There was
Correct.
people that should have been looked at. With that said, the one thing I am sure of, the one thing that you'll never be able to convince me of, is that Stephen Avery and Brendan Dassey did not do a damn thing that night. There was no crime scene. There was no blood. She wasn't cut in the bed. She wasn't shot in the garage. None of that happened. That is the one thing I know.
Completely agree. That's why I'm here. Because as Stephen Avery said, the evidence don't make sense. And even Stephen said it multiple times. The evidence doesn't stack up. They know the state know that they've got a very, very paper thin circumstantial case, which there is plenty of doubt, right? So that's why they had to groom Brendan Dassey, right? But in the end, Brendan Dassey was so toxic they couldn't use him because he was a loose cannon. BB, do you have a comment?
Oh, I'm sorry. I think I was just I left unmuted.
No problems at all. Millbilly,
I
do you
do.
have a comment? Oh, Sammy.
Go ahead, let Millbilly go.
Millbilly.
Oh, go ahead, Sammy.
Well, I was just going to say to Christy, and so considering we know through all of our research for a fact, these boys did nothing. They did not do this. But assuming Teresa Halbach is actually dead, would you not say that there is a murderer running loose then that they have failed to apprehend?
Absolutely. 100%. If those are Teresa's bones, yes, there is a murderer on the loose. Maybe it was a one-time thing. Maybe he's murdered other women. Maybe we have no idea. But we know that in 1985, Stephen Avery was convicted for a rape that he didn't commit. And Gregory Allen was left free to rape again.
Correct.
So it would
Correct.
not surprise me to find out that there was somebody, I don't want to call him a serial killer, but it would not surprise me to find out that Teresa was not this person's only victim. I guess my whole thing now is just keep an open mind on this, because anything can be possible, but Stephen Avery is not guilty.
Yeah. But looking at this whole situation, I want the whole wide world to know there is, if we're assuming Teresa Halbach was murdered, guess what? There's a murderer out there running loose. This is why Denny suspects are so vital.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
She could have easily had a medical issue, a car accident. She could have died of natural causes.
Absolutely. Anything is possible
It's
at this
just the
point.
fact that
Nothing would
she
surprise
goes
me.
missing or disappears, and then one of the last persons she's seen with is Stephen Avery. And
correct.
when you hear his attorney tells Stephen Avery what Brendan Dassey told the investigators. Stephen Avery's response it makes me laugh.
Correct.
Wendra Nolan is asking, I have a question. Zellner says the murder happened very quickly. If so, what was the point of the murder? Murders like that tend to be murders of passion or someone that is deeply involved with the individual.
Yep. And the other thing that's very suspicious is the timing of the murder. The timing. If you're trying to tie it with the depositions, but that could be purely a fluke.
Right.
But the mere fact that someone like Scott Blowdorn and Ryan Hilligers were given clean slates, alibis, though they didn't have to even give an alibi, was a real big concern. But for me personally,
and Bobby,
yes, that's exactly
and you know
what I was
something,
going to say.
I could actually totally consider natural causes, but if it were not for the cut marks on the bones, how is someone going to piece themselves out? Yeah.
And two gunshots to the cranium. Yeah. No, this ain't natural. Unless you suspect real foul play. If it was an accident, a traffic accident, and then someone intervened and had to shoot her twice in the skull and then cut her up, that's way
tremendous,
excessive. That's way excessive. And don't forget, it doesn't appear that the airbag in the vehicles were deployed, right? So that's even suspicious in itself. If you're saying that, maybe it was a traffic accident or whatever, it doesn't appear to be that way, in my opinion. But something happened to the RAV.
Well, there's multiple dozens of sightings of a car fitting her description in multiple different places.
Yes.
And it's like they just ignored it.
Correct.
Just like when the tip comes in about somebody knocking on his door. What is we?
Correct.
That's definitely not the case. Just write it down. I'll look at it.
Correct. Well, look, there's no question. Either the MTSO were involved, or
this call comes in on Saturday, and she's still a missing person. They have no evidence that anything's happened to her. All they have is a car that they found on Avery's property.
Correct.
And it's not even Stephen Avery's property. It's his family's property.
Correct. Stephen Avery was targeted immediately.
Only thing Stephen Avery owned was vehicles.
Yes.
Rolly was letting them stay in the trailer until he got his settlement, and then he was planning to move out.
Correct.
Not to mention, he was also living in the ice shanty when Jody initially moved into the trailer.
That's correct. That is correct. And we've covered all of this in our podcast. I mean, but what is obvious was that he was targeted. Stephen Avery was targeted immediately. And Christy and I even said it. We even read it in Ken Kratz's book. The number one thing was, we get knocked on my door, and I think it was November the 3rd. It was really early on. Guess where Teresa was last seen? Stephen Avery's property, or, at the salvage yard. You mean the Stephen Avery? And you're thinking to yourself, wait a sec, guys, you haven't collected any forensic evidence and you're already talking about Stephen Avery?
Take into consideration that the Calumet County prosecutors would have been known about Stephen Avery from the August investigation of his sexual assault on Marie Avery. Obviously, they didn't have enough evidence to charge him. The procedure is the officers get the evidence, they give their case to the district attorney, and he makes a decision what they should do next.
Correct.
Obviously, when Manitowoc is first contacted, they're uncomfortable with following this because Stephen Avery is taking out a lawsuit.
That's correct. Except, of course, they forgot to tell Lenk, Colburn, and Remiker to keep off the property, right? and not to mention everybody else. And the other thing, of course, we mustn't forget is if Cuss Road and Deer Camp played no role, how come they actually got it mapped out in 3D? Right? How come
all over there?
Yes. Why are they taking measurements of Cuss Road, the Deer Camp, and do a 3D map, reconstruction map, and all photography, aerial photography done of those areas? If what the state says, Teresa Halbach was murdered in the salvage yard. What are they doing outside the salvage yard?
They don't get the shoes to track her scent into the 7th.
Yes.
And are those the measurements that are sealed that cannot be released upon the FOIA?
Yeah, that's a good question. But they were definitely there. They even stated in a report that they were there. And we've got photographic evidence of the surveyors being present at Cuss Road with their instruments. Now, wait a minute. If nothing happened at Cuss Road but a tree stump, why are you spending thousands and thousands of dollars and man hours mapping out Cuss Road Deer Camp?
Even bringing back retired bushmen for it.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Obi-Wan, do you have a comment?
So they're on Cuss Road, and they're saying that they had to extend the crime scene out like 2 miles or so from the property. So where exactly would that put them?
Well, Cuss Road is discovered on the 7th. The 8th, Wisconsin State Patrol is brought in. The 9th, the morning of the 9th is when they start discovering bones off of the Avery property.
Right.
At 1 p.m., you hear them on the officer transmission stating, we're going to need a DCI investigator over here in this other quarry. They're in the southwest quadrant of the property, right where the location where the pelvic bone's found.
Yes. And don't forget the blood in the quarry as well, CX, right? They found fresh blood.
Yep.
And they've got and it's a male, right? And it doesn't match to the Averys, doesn't match to the Dasseys. They don't know who it belongs to. And of course, we mustn't forget the most critical forensic piece of information that no one talks about, A23.
Yep.
Right? So therefore, you've got this investigation that's got so many loose ends. It's ridiculous. Kathleen Zona knows that. We all know that, right? But the question
Well, I have
is,
a question.
why?
I have a question here. They're wanting to know how long was. Let me go back and read this here because I couldn't find it and now I did. How long was Teresa working for Auto Trader taking pics at Avery's?
Anybody got an answer for that one?
If you want to talk about the overall time, I have no clue. But she'd been there numerous, like in the teens of
yes,
time.
She has.
In the teens of times, yeah.
Yes. She had photographed multiple vehicles. She's been to that property before. In actual fact, in I think one of the CASO reports, there's photographs of every vehicle that she took. Mm-hmm. Right. So she's been there multiple times. And that's exactly when the bus driver saw her at another time, taking photographs of the vehicles at the front of the property, not at the back, where the van
Now
was.
they're asking what, okay, she'd been to Avery's before, but when was the very first time she went there to take pics of cars?
I think it's in CASO, the first time that she arrived on that property. I can't remember off the top of my head, but that information is known, including all the photographs she took. I think Stephen said she was there, over 10 times taking pictures?
He said in the teens. He said in the teens, but one thing we have for sure is we have her cell records for a year. It'd be pretty easy to look at those and see when the first time that she called Avery's was. I don't think it was over a year.
Right, but my understanding was that was meant to be her last work for Auto Trader on Halloween, right?
Right.
Her last. That's very, very interesting timing-wise. Christy, do you have a comment?
I'm trying to find where I have it saved. I have the answer to this question. If you just bear with me for a few minutes, I'll be right.
No problems at all.
I'm almost positive I have this saved. Give me a few minutes.
No worries. Millbilly, do you have a comment?
No.
Okay. Well, guys, we'll wait for Christy, of course. I'm
I
just
got
being
one.
Basically, this
Oh.
person said they're just wondering. It's a thread killer. He was just wondering how long she worked for Auto Trader.
Yeah, I would say it would be several months.
She
Oh,
was-
we
it
know
was-
that. We know
I
that. She
think it
was
was 8
she was
to
working
10
there 9 months.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
She was
Since
only
Jan-
there for 9 months.
since the
Right.
beginning of the year, basically.
Okay.
And the person before her that had the job was a GCI, DOJ agent.
Kathy
Which one?
Williford.
Okay, yeah.
Kathy
Does
Williford.
anyone know when Teresa moved to Hilbert from Green Bay?
It was around September, because we know that because she had to get a new phone, and that's when she bought that famous Motorola Razr phone. We have the receipt for that phone. I think that's in August, if I'm not mistaken, August of 2004.
Right, because they went where she
I could
was
be wrong on
living.
that.
They went where she was living, and they got all the boxes and other bits and pieces, so they would know all the dates, the receipts and everything. Yes, they would know that. But the point is, Teresa Halbach had been there before, right? So she knows where the Avery salvage yard was. So has anyone got any doubt that she was trying to look for directions going to the salvage yard? If
No,
do you think she was lost, or she knew exactly where she was going?
because no matter which address they give on that, it's Avery Road.
Right.
I find it hard
And-
to believe her being lost on that particular day down there for Avery.
No, not if it's Avery Road. She's been there before. That's the route where the bus stops. The bus stops right at the end of Avery Road. So that's where she would have entered into the property. And she knew the property quite well because she took photographs there before. But obviously, somebody must have said, hey, look, the van is down here. You have to travel down this road to get to the van. So it wasn't at the,
Neverly's
wasn't at
asking,
the,
did she commute from Green Bay to take Auto Trader pics in Manitowoc for $8 a picture?
She charged everybody $8 a picture, even her mother.
right. Right, and of course she did hustle shots as well. So it's one of those things. You don't know what happened. But if you believe Stephen said he saw her leave, right? If you believe Bobby, Bobby said no, she didn't leave. So one of them is mistaken, or one of them is lying.
And
Stephen talks to her personally, physically, standing feet from her. Can't
Yes.
remember what the hell she's wearing. Bobby Dassey is watching her from a window, from a distance, can describe exactly what she's wearing.
Correct.
And they're
no question.
asking, Thread Killer's asking, when did Steve file his civil suit?
September of 2004.
Thank you.
And that's when all this crazy stuff starts happening.
Correct. Obi-Wan, do you have a comment?
Yeah. I wonder, well, I mean, it's just a thought, but wouldn't they have thought that it would have been important to have tested what evidence of blood that they gathered from the quarry that belonged to a male to item, the blood to A23?
Well, they got a full genetic profile of CX, which is the blood at the quarry. It's from a male, and it doesn't match anyone that they know of, right? Now, the thing is, no one has come forward to say, oh, yes, I was bleeding at the quarry, it was me, like a worker or somebody. No one's come forward. And that's highly suspicious in itself, right? Because at that area, that's where they found the pelvic bones, the cut pelvic bones, and you find blood. Now, could either be nefarious or non-nefarious, but no one has come forward to say, oh, yeah, that was me. I accidentally cut myself. Now, no one makes any mention, Culhane doesn't mention CX and A23. She never mentions, oh, yeah, A23 doesn't match or matches CX. No mention of it at all. We don't know. So we don't know if A23 matches CX. We don't know. We don't know, Obi-Wan.
Now, is this in the brief? Or
It's in the,
Zellner's argument, something that she's going to be arguing?
well, Zellner actually mentions CX and A23 in the filing that she's done. So she's come up with the theory of where Teresa Halbach was killed and what happened to her RAV. And the quarry plays an important role. So the number one thing to do is to obviously run CX through CODIS, and 2, do a full genetic profile of A23. That's going to be very, very important. We don't know who A23 belongs to. Christy, do you have a comment?
I've looked everywhere because I need this. I can't find it. And I hate to give you information when I'm not 100% sure of what I'm saying.
No problems at all.
She started working there. It was approximately 9 months before. It was like February-ish that she first interviewed, I believe. I believe the first time she was out to the salvage yard was May, could be April.
Right.
And I believe she was there a total of 12 times.
Right.
I could be wrong, but that's what memory is telling me. I'm usually very good with numbers, but I've got so much information stored in my brain now. I can't say that it's accurate.
Yeah, but the important thing though, Christy, is that she's been there multiple times.
Correct. This was not right.
Yeah, she's well aware of the protocols.
And I believe even if she got the call that said to come to Janda's, Tom Janda sold his truck, so she would still know that would be Avery.
Yeah, because he flagged her down for a hustle shot.
Right.
Yeah, and she had to bill that to Jonda, so I believe that even if it was come to be Jonda's, she'd still connect who that was, you know.
Yeah. So the whole idea, the whole premise that Stephen Avery lured Teresa Halbach to the property is rubbish, because there was a van photograph, right? So I don't know what Ken Kratz is on about, that he's trying to push the agenda that Teresa Halbach was lured to the salvage yard. She knew where she was going.
And when law enforcement finds out about Mike Osmondson, they don't try to contacting him first. They try contacting his father.
Right.
They can't get a hold of him, so then they talk to his mother. Her statements, did they verify what she said? Did they talk to his little brother? Because he claims he was taking his brother trick-or-treating that night.
All right. Yes.
And his statement alone is very suspicious. He says between the 31st and the 14th, he was only there on the 10th.
Right. And Michael and Bobby used to go hunting every day, right?
They hung out every day. Where was Bobby Dassey staying when the property was locked down? He was at Mike's house.
Right. Yeah.
Brendan's first interview, what does he say? Oh, Bobby and Mike go goose hunting every day.
Goose hunting every day.
And he also says in the Quarry 2004 statement for the fire, what does he say? Oh, I was hunting with my friend Mike. Goose hunting.
Yes. Yep. And you know what? We don't know who was in that blazer, right? We don't know who was in that blazer that apparently followed Teresa Halbach out of the salvage yard. We don't know who. It could have well been Mike O. We don't know.
One of them could have hopped in the blazer, followed her. One of them could have walked over to Cuss Road and been waiting.
Correct. Yep. Could have been an entrapment, a simple entrapment. It's as simple as that. But we don't know. We don't know.
Well,
that's the frustrating thing.
previously contacted and told to go to that location.
Right.
Well, Thread Killer is in here and he's saying, she is saying basically that she has always felt as though Teresa was some kind of plant all along, and also mentions that so Teresa Halbach started working at about 3 months or so after Stephen filed his lawsuit.
Yeah, but
Right.
if they were going to take somebody out intentionally, the best subject would have been Marie.
Oh, I see. You mean to pin the murder on Stephen?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
a plant.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
entirely plausible.
Yeah.
Thing is, we don't know what happens because there wasn't a proper investigation done whatsoever. They ignored things they should have.
I agree.
Correct.
From the info we do have, all we can determine is who framed them and how.
Yes.
Each piece of evidence that we get obtained slowly paints a bigger picture.
Yes, it does. It does. That's why I think it's important now, after a little while, that we also tackle MAM 2, because MAM 2 opens a lot more avenues up that wasn't really available or known in MAM 1. MAM 1 just presented the case as it unfolded, and it caused a lot of rage in people. But MAM 2 started to answer a lot of questions and open up a lot of scenarios. Big Jeff, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I do. I'm gonna steal Sandy's job for a second and address Thread Killer because I'm watching the comments. She says, very convenient that TH started working for Auto Trader not long after Stephen filed the suit. And I agree with that. And actually, there's so many things happen that are convenient. Many of the researchers here actually discuss getting the church lady saying, "Isn't that convenient?" Because there are so many things that happen that are so convenient for the state on this case. So yeah, we agree with that. We agree with that sentiment. Come on to the Discord server and talk to us about it.
Well, a week before Tom Kirk's deposition, his attorney emails the people in charge trying to get out of the deposition.
Convenient.
Yeah. Correct. I mean,
and I find it very suspect that we got Dennis Jacobs, rest in peace. He calls Calumet Dispatch on the 11th wanting to talk to Pagel because he just talked to his neighbor. His neighbor is Tom Kachurik.
Yeah.
The guy that was just had his deposition rescheduled.
Yes.
Like everything that took place, they fucked Stephen. He should have kept his lawsuit going. He should have never stopped it.
Yes, I agree. But you see, all fingers are pointing back to one person again, the sheriff, Tom Kachurik.
And the district attorney.
And the district attorney, correct.
And when does Mark Roars? I mean, if somebody has the money to obtain all these depositions, it is ridiculous. What is it, Christy? Like $35,000, some shit like that? But Mark Roar,
$15,000.
Yeah.
$15,000 to get the video of the depositions that were taken.
I mean, Mark Roar, they only have like I think it's like not even 2 minutes. And they're asking him, well, what do you have to say? And he says, well, what do you want me to say?
It
speaks for itself.
That's right. Yep. He definitely got caught with his hands in the cookie jar, that's for sure. It didn't look good. It didn't look good at all. But guys, I think we've covered just about everything in this what was meant to be a short little preview. But the good thing is we've got a lot of questions. Still have a lot of questions.
Well, I request for our viewers. if you guys could please put in some comments of some topics of this case you would like us to discuss further,
Yes,
it'd be very helpful.
yes, yes, for sure, for sure. What areas that you find puzzling? What areas do you find more investigation to be done? Because remember, we've got the phone calls, we've got a lot of the stuff, the police chatter that Millbilly's looking at, and of course, I've done a lot of the forensics on the bones, on the bullet, and on the DNA. So yeah, I'm gonna personally take a little bit of a break, and then hit MAM 2 really hard, and hopefully to continue in the same manner. And hopefully our audience has found this very educating and of benefit, because we're doing it here, guys. We're doing it for the boys, and we value your input. And if you like what we do, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, guys. All right. So I think we've gone well over 2 hours in this little mini summary. Are there any final comments, guys, from the panel? Bibi, do you have any comments? Final comment?
No, I'm good. I just want to thank everybody for coming and listening to us, and hope you have a good weekend, and come and see us on our Discord channel.
Beautiful. Thank you, Bibi. Big Jeff, do you have any final comment?
Thank you, Dr. Silkman. I do. It is horrific how much information the state continues to hide on this case. The fact that they continue to deny what they call a Wisconsin Open Document request, what we call Freedom of Information Act request, is just, it's stunning. Why should there be phone calls prior to October 31st that they won't release? Why is it that when we put in a very reasonable request for documentation that they have, oh no, you can't have that. If they didn't have anything to hide, they wouldn't keep on trying to hide stuff. And we cannot be the reason that things like this can continue to happen in the United States of America is because good people turn their backs. And the tide is growing. The tsunami is coming. We are no longer going to keep our backs turned to this level of corruption.
Yes, correct. And of course, all these new pieces of information that are coming out, especially all the events that took place in the 80s, etc., and the Ricky case, you can see it's the same people involved. The Penny Bernstein case, same individuals involved, and there's a pattern there, and that pattern's going to get exposed. I'm sure of it. Christy, do you have any? Thank you, Big Jeff. Christy, do you have any final comment?
Yes, I just want to mention the website one more time for those of us that missed it in the beginning. We put out a website. It is now live. Please go check it out. It is foulplay.info. We are trying to link all the groups together, all the information together, trying to make it a one-stop shop. We even get updates from Carla. She's given me permission to take the updates from the family group and post them to the page so that everybody can check in and see how Dolores and Alan is doing. That way you can kind of just go to one spot and find everything.
Awesome.
So definitely check that out. We're excited about that.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Christy. Much appreciated. Millbilly, any final comments for today's podcast? Okay. Obi-Wan, any final comments from today's podcast?
I just want to thank the cast and everybody for joining us. And well, we'll see you soon, I guess.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Obi, and thank you very much for your contributions throughout the podcast. They've been awesome. Millbilly.
Yeah, I just posted links to Foul Play's Discord channel and mine. So if you guys have questions, feel free to put them there. Or like Zoe said, always comment in the comments.
Awesome. Christy, did you have a quick comment?
I do. I have one more thing. Chad Keller has asked me to read this comment out loud. It says, Peg Lautenschlager was a product of the Clinton administration. This is why the atrocity was accepted by the Wisconsin DOJ.
Whoa. Yeah, this is big. Very big. Very, very big. Millbilly, another comment.
I'll just thank everybody for supporting everything we do.
Beautiful. No, awesome. And Sammy, do you have a final comment for today's
Yep.
podcast?
We asked our people here to give us examples of things they'd like to hear about, and Miss Piggy suggested discuss or explain Kathleen's motions to newbies who may not be on Twitter.
Yes. Yep. All the good thing is that there's quite a lot, and they're like huge. She covers a lot of areas, especially in the forensics, and we will be covering all of that, I promise, in MAM 2. So we'll be looking at MAM 2 in a similar fashion that we've done here with a series of podcasts, but with an emphasis on the forensics and especially the work done by Kathleen Zellner, her experts. We're going to bring it all together, and timing-wise, it'll be awesome because hopefully she'll get her day in court. So, yeah, thank you so much, Sammy, for that comment.
Thank you. I wanted to say thank you to everybody for playing nice and for showing up. Bye now.
Awesome. Well, thank you, guys. I'd like to thank our listeners for your kind support over a long period of time and for your excellent questions that you fielded throughout the podcast. They've been awesome. Thank you very much for your support. And really, guys, remember, we're here for the boys. So justice can be done not only for the boys, but also for Teresa. And I'd like to thank the panel for their excellent knowledge and their help in this case. So, guys, if you like what we've done, please give a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and join us in Discord for further comments. Thank you very much, guys. Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.
This has been a Foul Play production.